What's up, kings and queens? It's your boy Dan from Daft Previews, and today we're getting this one out early. I just got home from work. I do have some plans tonight. I'm going to go shoot some hoops, but I'm not going to be up till 2 a.m. doing my normal video for you guys. So I'm getting this one out early. I'm basically previewing each game, the players that I would normally look at before I make my picks, and I do all this research to make sure that you have everything that you need before you place your bets. So I apologize. This is a slightly different version of what we normally do. As of tomorrow, business as usual. But now let's get into it. Let's go. All right, we're taking a look at the Philadelphia 76ers versus the New York Knicks. Now, when I go through and actually make my picks, I don't go through every single game and every single player. I let Outlier give me a shortcut to tell me who's been playing well recently and who's played well against their opponent in the past. So something that automatically comes to mind is this player here. It's Josh Hart over his points, rebounds, and assists. It's at minus 120. It's 26.5. So you can see here he's hit this in 8 out of his last 10 games. If we're looking at the matchup, his points matchup isn't a bad one. Somewhat difficult, though. His rebound matchup is excellent, and his assist prop slightly on the difficult side. But he has hit this in 8 of his last 10. Looking at head-to-head matchups, he has hit this in 2 out of his last 3 games against the Philadelphia 76ers. What we can see in the 3 games against the Philadelphia 76ers, he's absolutely smashed his rebound prop. So this might actually lead me to look at that. If it is at 8.5, it might be a little bit difficult, but we know the matchup is a good one. We know Josh Hart is going to get some minutes. So his rebound prop is at 9.5. He's only covered in 5 out of his last 10. What I'll also be interested in his points prop. Now, he shot terribly in this last game against Philly. Terribly. He shot 4 from 13. From downtown, he shot 1 from 7. So I would back his points prop purely because I think there's a good chance that he has a bounce back in this one. The matchup isn't too overly difficult, but I might even look at his points plus rebounds as well, because rebounding-wise, we know he's going to get the minutes. The opportunity is going to be there. The line is very high, though, I must say that, and the odds aren't the best either. But if we look at his points plus rebounds, it's 22.5. It's also pretty much bang on at plus money. He's hit this in 7 out of his last 10 games. So I think in terms of points and rebounds, I think there's a good chance that he covers this. That's one thing that I'm sweating at the moment, points plus rebounds, but I'll obviously fine-tune this a little bit later on once I make my final picks. But Josh Hart points or rebounds is on my list. All right, so I apologize if I skip through some of the main players and their props, but can't take them all. I also don't look at first half props because that's not available in my sportsbook. But another one that could be of interest is Mo Bamba here, under 4.5 points. So we know he's got a difficult matchup here. The Knicks don't allow many points to centers whatsoever. We know that Mo Bamba's hit this in, he's gone under in 8 out of his last 10. His last 2 games, he's playing 18 to 20 minutes, though. He's getting some action. In head-to-head matchups against the Knicks, he's gone under in 3 straight. His last game, which is their most recent game, was a very low-scoring game, might I add. But he played 20 minutes and only scored 4 points. In that game, he shot 2 from 4 from the field. So he played the minutes. He only shot four times. Chances are he probably shoots 4 times again. But taking the under, yeah, I thought I'd probably lean towards that. But God, what a terrible bet. 4.5 points. That's no fun at all. What else comes to mind here? Isaiah Hartenstein, under 14.5 points plus rebounds. So he's gone under in 8 out of his last 10. He does have a good matchup when it comes to his points, though. So you might be looking at the under in his rebounds. He did, however, he just had 10 rebounds against the 76ers. But that game, both teams shot under 40%, I believe. It was absolutely atrocious. So I'd probably more likely lean to the under 7.5 boards. So we can see in head-to-head matchups, he's gone over in only 3 of 7. So he's gone under 4 times. No Embiid, Hartenstein. He's obviously only playing about 20-odd minutes these days, right? 21.9 minutes on average. He's gone under 7 out of his last 10. And that last game against the 76ers was ridiculous. If they think they scored 13 or 15 points each in the first quarter, there were rebounds to be had in that game. I'd be expecting both offenses to improve and get a little bit better. Therefore, there should be less rebounds available for Hartenstein. So let me write that down. Hartenstein under on boards. All right, and sifting through this, what else comes to mind? And Jalen Brunson under 3.5 rebounds. I'm not clicking through that. He's gone under in 8 of his last 10, but that doesn't seem like a fun bet at all. DiVincenzo over 1.5 steals. That could be a play. I don't bet on steals and blocks markets that often, but check that out. Over 1.5, it's plus 122. He's hit 8 of his last 10. Difficult matchup, though. Difficult matchup. Sixers don't allow that many steals to the backcourt, but he has covered in his last 2 games against Philly. So you don't think the matchup is too important. DiVincenzo steals, that could be a good play. What else is coming up here? DiVincenzo over in his PRA. So he's covered this in 7 out of his last 10. The problem here, he's covered in 1 of his last 3 against Philly. He did, however, cover in that last game against Philly. I'm assuming he didn't shoot very well. 6 from 17, 35%. He shot 3 from 12 from downtown. So knowing what we know, maybe his points prop at 16.5, you'd probably be more willing to take that. So I only scored 15 against Philly last time. The matchup against the 76ers is somewhat difficult, but he took 17 shots, taking a lot of shots, falling quite short over his last 2. This is something that I'd probably lean the over on because the volume's there, but actually now I think about it, he's been shooting a pretty poor percentage for quite some time. So, and I'm not going to take the PRA, but I don't expect as many rebounds to become available. Now we could look at a Mo Bamba under 9.5 PRA. So he's gone under in 7 out of his last 10 games. He's got a difficult matchup for all props, Mo Bamba. In head-to-head matchups, he's gone well under in 3 straight games against the Knicks. The last game, though, that's the one that matters. He played 20 minutes, scored 4 points, and had only 1 rebound. What are we looking at? In Dallas, Charlotte, and Boston, he's covered these. And he did all that in limited action. I think given the matchup here, I think a Mo Bamba under could be on the cards. Provided I can find his markets, of course. Under in PRA, so I don't hate that. What else do we see? Scrolling down. So the further down I get, the less likely I am to play these picks. Ultimately, because the hit rates just haven't been there. But this is pretty much how I get to my shortlist. So, yeah, there's nothing else in that game that's really piquing my interest. The next game is the Washington Wizards versus the Memphis Grizzlies. So I've got these filtered by the last 10 games. So we get to see a 10-game sample first, and then we get to break down things a little bit further. So what do we have? Kyle Kuzma, top of the list, over 28.5 points plus assists. Now, he's covered this in 8 out of his last 10 games. He's covered it in 5 consecutive games in a row. Against Memphis, he has struggled, going under in 3 straight. Their last matchup was in October, I believe, this last year. So back when Memphis was probably a little bit more complete. So they're definitely down on troops at the moment. So I'm possibly willing to take this Kyle Kuzma play. Over 28.5 points plus assists. So we can see that over his last 4 games, his assist numbers have been pretty decent, but scoring the ball, he's done very well at as well. Just look at his points prop. That's at 24.5. Covering in 7 out of his last 10 games. I don't believe he'll get the Vince Williams assignment if Vince Williams is playing, of course. Let's quickly check. All right. He's not listed as... No, Vince Williams is out. So their best perimeter defender's not there. Wizards probably have a good chance of winning this game. I don't think it's a blowout, but yeah, I don't mind Kyle Kuzma points plus assists. All right. Another player that's popped up on my radar, which looks somewhat appealing, is Tyus Jones, and it's under 12.5 rebounds plus assists. Now, he's gone under in 7 out of his last 10 games. He just had a monster game against Miami with 16 assists and 4 rebounds. The matchup with Memphis, though, is a difficult one if you're looking at the under. So he's got a good matchup here to go over Tyus Jones. In head-to-head matchups, he had 7 assists and 2 rebounds. That was at the start of the season, so yeah, I wouldn't be willing to take that. I'd probably lean to the over, but given the form over his last 10, I wouldn't take that with any confidence. But interesting how we break down the data. Next one's Tyus Jones, under 2.5 first quarter assists. So this could be a real interesting one. A matchup is good for him to go over, but he's gone under in 6 out of his last 10 games. And he only had 2 assists last time against Memphis in the first quarter. So Tyus Jones, yeah, I don't know. He could rack those up very quickly, actually. So I'm not too sold on that. We've got Kuzma over 3.5 assists. Tyus Jones under in a PRA. That's not looking good either. But yeah, nothing more in this game that's really screaming out to me. The next one's the Indiana Pacers versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. So there's quite a bit of green here, and I don't mind that. So it looks like the main prop that's been hitting most of the time here is Aaron Naismith. So you can see the hit rates on this. His rebounds under, points plus assists under, PRA under, points plus rebounds under, and points unders. So I think we'll get started with the PRA because it'll give us a breakdown of the matchup for all props. So up against OKC, he's got a difficult matchup pretty much for points, rebounds, and assists. He's gone under in 8 out of his last 10 games, which means his line is probably a lot higher than it normally is, which tells me there's probably an injury to the Pacers. Yeah, it looks like it's just Benedict Mathurin. So I'd be looking at how does he play without Benedict Mathurin? What's he doing? And we can see without Benedict Mathurin, he's actually gone over this PRA in 6 out of his last 10 games. Last game against Orlando, 16-5. So the numbers do check out. So now I'm not so confident to take his under. So there's a breeze pass, Aaron Naismith. Who else do we have? We've got SGA, under 12.5 rebounds plus assists. So I know he's going to have a difficult matchup here for assists against the Pacers. Rebounds, probably not so much. But he's gone under in 8 out of his last 10 games if you're looking at 12.5 rebounds plus assists. In the head-to-head matchup, did go over the last time they played with 9 rebounds and 4 assists. In his last 10, 8 of his last 10. So yeah, I think the difficult thing here is probably on the rebound front. You have another monster rebound game in this one. But yeah, I definitely don't hate this, to be honest. SGA under in his rebounds assists because he will definitely score his 40 points or 30 points. SGA under in rebounds and assists. So I'll check that out a little bit further later on. What else is screaming out to me? Miles Turner under 17.5 points plus assists. So the problem here is he does have a good matchup for points and assists against OKC, but he's gone under his points plus assist line in 7 out of his last 10. In his last matchup against OKC, this was last season though, he only scored 7 points. So I wouldn't be too confident in taking Miles Turner in this one. What else is screaming out to me? Josh Giddey unders. Nope. Nemhard. Nope. Okay. Good. All right, so let's jump versus San Antonio Spurs. Dylan Brooks under 15.5 points plus assists. He's gone under this 15.5 points plus assist line in 10 consecutive games. If you look at his last 20, he's gone under in 14 of his last 20. So his last 10, he's really slowed down. Looking at his last 10, he's still playing 30 minutes a night. Compare that to his season average, where he's played 31.3. So a very slight reduction in his minutes played. But maybe we're seeing it with his shot attempts. So in his last 10, he's taking 7.8 shot attempts per game. On the season, he's averaging 10.7. So yeah, in his last 10 games, he's shooting the ball 3 times less. He's also shooting a lower percentage, 30% from the field, 26% from deep. So my man is just cold right now. In terms of the matchup, he's got a difficult matchup for points. Assists, probably not so much. So let's filter this just by points. So he's gone under his points line in 10 consecutive games too. And that's where he has a difficult matchup. And yeah, he's taken some shots, but he's just not shooting very well, to be honest. So up against the San Antonio Spurs, do play quite quick. So Brooks possibly could take advantage of this. But if the game's going to be up and down, Dylan Brooks isn't the type of player to take advantage of that. So Dylan Brooks, I'm going to have a look at his unders. I don't mind this. Under in points. What else looks like a good play here, according to Outlier? If you like the block market, you can get Fred VanVleet under 0.5 blocks. So for him not to get a block in this game, it's minus 105, which is pretty good. So the matchup is great. The Spurs actually allow the fewest blocks to point guards on the season. Fred's hit the under in 13 of his last 20 games, but in his last 10, 9 out of his last 10 games. So that could be an interesting one if you can find his market. Let's check that out. So that's not too bad. What else do we see? We've got Jalen Green here. Under in rebounds plus assists. Let's check this out. So he's got under 9.5 rebounds plus assists in 8 out of his last 10 games. The matchup against the Spurs, however, is a good one, meaning he's more likely to go over his rebounds plus assists, but it's probably also why we see a higher line. In head-to-head matchups, he's had 7 games against the San Antonio Spurs dating back to last season, and he's gone under in 7 consecutive games against them. So at minus 105, I don't hate it. I don't like that I'm finding a lot of unders here, but I don't hate that. Jalen Green, under 9.5 rebounds and assists. Because he's capable of getting 10 rebounds in a game. We've seen it many times this season, but I don't know. I don't mind. I might be able to screw around with that. His first quarter prop here, under 1.5 assists. Oh, sorry, over 1.5 assists. He's gone over assists in 7 out of his last 10 games. But in head-to-head matchups, he did go over the last time, but only 2 of his last 7. So I'm not loving that. Any other players that come up? Just more unders on Jalen Green, really. Unders on Dylan Brooks. These are the most consistent players that you're going to game. There's actually no Spurs players, so they probably have a lot of game time decisions. Jumping into the Boston Celtics versus the Utah Jazz, Keontae George. That's a first half under. The numbers look great, but obviously can't play first half markets. I don't have access to that. But Jordan Clarkson, so he's been passing the ball quite well. He's gone over his 4.5 assist line in like 8 of his last 10. 7 out of his last 10. My apologies. Problem here is only had 2 assists in his last game against Boston. So unless something has changed, I wouldn't be willing to take it. But Keontae George and Colin Sexton are playing. So yeah, I wouldn't be too confident betting his assists. One thing I'm going to do is just take off these first half props. So the props that I'm not going to bet on, such as turnovers, first half props, double doubles, they're the ones I don't bet on. So let me just remove those. And what do we see? All right. So we've got Jordan Clarkson under points and assists, under 23.5. So he's gone under in 7 out of his last 10. He does have a difficult matchup for both points and assists in this game. In his last match up against the Celtics, only had 2 points and 2 assists in 17 minutes. So I don't expect him to play that bad. But the Boston Celtics, I wonder if Drew Holiday's looks like he's out for this one. Kristaps could be out as well. So this would be a good lean, though, to be honest. I'll have to research it further, given the team movements. But Jordan Clarkson, under 23.5 points plus assists. So I'll look into that a bit further. What else is screaming out to me here? Colin Sexton PRA, perhaps, but very similar. He'll only have one matchup. So under 30.5. He's gone under in 7 out of his last 10. Matchup isn't too bad. Rebounds, that's a tough matchup if you're looking at the under. And in head-to-head matchups, he had 13 points and 3 assists. So Boston did blow these guys out last time. But at 30.5, look, seems quite high, to be honest. He's more than capable of covering, but yeah, even the under and Colin Sexton there. So there's something about this game I probably have to look into. One of these teams is going to be missing a lot of players that you need to take into consideration. So I'll check that out because it seems a little bit high. And the other one's all Colin Sexton under 22.5 points. So, but we've looked at the Colin Sexton stuff anyway. John Collins over 2.5 first quarter rebounds. So tough matchup against the Celtics, but he was covered in 7 out of his last 10 games, going over 2.5. Last game against Boston, he had 5 rebounds in that first quarter. It's not a bad looking play, but I'm not going to look into that any further. And yeah, it looks like that's pretty much it from this game. So there's not many Celtics markets by the looks of it. The next one's the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Sacramento Kings. Keegan Murray, first one on the top of the list. Under 6.5 rebounds plus assists. So up against the Bucks, who've been playing pretty good defensively. And you can see he's gone under in 8 out of his last 10 games. He's got a tough matchup for rebounds and assists. And looking at head-to-head matchups, he's gone under in 3 straight against Milwaukee. Now, the Kings are at home in this one. So let's see how he goes at home. He's gone under in 6 out of his last 10 games at home. The games he's gone over, Chicago Bulls, that's an easy matchup for power forwards. Detroit, that's not overly difficult. Atlanta is an easy matchup for sure. And the Pacers, that's a great matchup for him too. So difficult matchup here against the Milwaukee Bucks. They're an improved Milwaukee Bucks. I'm pretty confident I'm going to bet this under, to be honest. Keegan Murray, under 9.5. Oh, 6.5. Shit. Under 6.5 rebounds plus assists. Don't mind that. Thank you, Outlier, for making my life easy. But look, if you guys want to do your own research and look at Outlier, you can download my download. You can access the link in the video description. You'll get a 7-day free trial, and you can do this very same exercise if you want to look for your own picks and dive in a little bit further. What else is there? Giannis to hit a three-pointer. Minus 110. Okay. We're talking here. So he's got a good matchup. He's covered this in 8 out of his last 10 games, and he's hit this in 2 of his last 3 against the Sacramento Kings. If we're looking at his attempts, he did attempt 2 last time against Sacramento, didn't hit one. In his last 10 games, he's averaging 1.9 attempts per game. So, yeah, it really is a coin flip. He has been hitting them as of late, been shooting 59% from deep, but you're only going to get 2 real shots at this, to be honest. But, am I a betting man? I'm not too sure. So, well, what do you mean I'm not too sure? I obviously am a betting man. 3-pointers made. But what I learned today after this shocking one, there were a lot of picks that I was leaning on and I ultimately didn't choose. A lot of those did hit. The ones I ended up picking, a lot of those sucked. I don't know if I'm thinking of maybe reducing things down to 1 unit and just throwing it on heaps of bets just to see where we land. I'm not too sure. Dame Lillard, over 6.5 assists against the Sacramento Kings. All right, so he's covered this in 7 out of his last 10 games. That's good. He's got a great matchup against the Kings. That's good. And in head-to-head matchups, he had 8 assists the last time these guys played. It is a road game for the Bucks, so Dame Lillard on the road, he's covered in 7 out of his last 10 road games. So Lillard assists, don't mind that. All right. Is there anything else that sparked my interest? Giannis, over 1.5 first quarter assists. He's covered in 7 out of his last 10. He's got a great matchup here against the Kings. Did have 4 assists the last time these guys played. Very high scoring game, but he did go under in the 2 games prior to that, for those last seasons. So, look, if you're getting plus money for Giannis to get 2 assists in the first quarter, I honestly don't mind that one either. Far out. Giannis, first quarter assists. Let's make this list nice and long, and then we'll go through it in a bit more detail a bit later. What do we have? De'Aaron Fox, over in his points, rebounds, plus assists. So he's covered this in 7 out of his last 10. He's got a good matchup for points, an average matchup for rebounds, and a tough matchup for assists. 7 of his last 10 games. In head-to-head matchups, he's covered in his last 2 against Milwaukee. But what's out to me right now is that his points prop is probably a better play. One game, well, both games it was all points. One game was a lot of rebounds. This other game had more assists. So maybe his points prop would be a better look. 27.5. He's covered that in 2 of his last 3 against the Kings. 6 out of his last 10. Does have a pretty good matchup. But yeah, that would be a lean because I want to dive into that a bit further. Box over in his points. What are some other good ones that are popping out to me? So we don't mind Giannis's assists. Under 43.5 points plus rebounds. Let's check that out. So he's got a good matchup to score a lot of points, but he's gone under his points and rebounds in 7 of his last 10. He's also gone under in 2 of his last 3 against the Kings, but yeah, I'm not really feeling that. This one looks pretty good. This is Dame Lillard's first quarter points, 7.5. So he's gone over in 7 out of his last 10. The matchup, not as easy, but it's not a difficult one. Last game against the Kings, he had 10 points in the first quarter. Played all 12 minutes. In his last 10 games, he's playing 10.9 minutes in that first quarter. So he does play most of it. So the opportunity is going to be there. Giannis doesn't play the full first quarter. So Dame is going to get an opportunity to chuck up a lot of points. 7.5. Look, that's a lean for sure. I need to investigate that, but it's not the worst play that I've seen. So I'm hoping that you guys are seeing that by using Outlier this way, you can actually get to your picks very quickly. Because if you really wanted to study a play, you could, and it could take you a lot of time. Don't know where to look. It could really burn some clock. But using Outlier, you can get at more than half of the most popular plays that people are going to pick on the day. You can find those yourself just like this, and then you just have to research them a little further. Kevin Huerter, first quarter points under 2.5. He's got under in 7 out of his last 10 games. 3 games against the Milwaukee Bucks, he's gone under 2.5 points in all 3. I think the risk here is that Kevin Huerter just needs to make 1 3-pointer and your bet is dust. But I'd lean to the under for sure, but 1 shot can really kill that play. Going down a little bit further, Domantas Sabonis over 1.5 steals and blocks. Check this out. 7 out of his last 10 games he's gone over. we look at the matchup, he does have a difficult matchup for steals and blocks against the Milwaukee Bucks, though. In head-to-head, he did have one steal, one block the last time they played, but he did go under in the 2 games prior to that. So, yeah, a little bit hesitant to take that. Okay. But yeah, not much else is screaming out to me. The next game is the Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Los Angeles Clippers. So this particular game, what do we see? Poor George, under 3.5 assists. So he's got a tough matchup for assists here. He has gone under in 7 out of his last 10. Did have 9 assists against the Chicago Bulls, though. In head-to-head matchups, he's gone under in 4 consecutive games against the Minnesota Timberwolves now. And the under is at plus money. Now, you guys know how I love unders. No, not unders. You know how I love plus money. The problem is I hate losing unders. I can hack losing an over. Fair enough. They might have shot poorly or whatever it was. But if it's an under, then I don't know. I just feel like I can't hack it. But I'll check his under assists later on. But at plus money, I don't hate it, to be honest. What else have we got here? Anthony Edwards, under 35.5 points plus assists. So he's gone under in 7 out of his last 10 games. The matchup against the Clippers, it doesn't support the under, to be honest. He's got an easy matchup to score points. But in head-to-head matchups, he's gone under his points plus assists in 5 out of his last 6 games against the Los Angeles Clippers. So the games where he's really nailed the assists, he's only scored 23 points. In a lot of other games, he struggled in both. He had one great game against the Clippers this year. That was a home game. So this is a road game. On the road, he had 23 and 8 last time. So, yeah, look, I'd lean to the under here for Anthony Edwards. I don't know who's missing. I'm going to check that out real quick. So Rudy might be out. Anthony Edwards' right shoulder is injured. Karl-Anthony Towns is obviously out. Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, game time decisions as well. So, look, Anthony Edwards, under in points and assists. That's not a bad short list. Rudy Gobert, under 32.5 PRAs. Let's check this out. So he's got a tough matchup for points and rebounds. His matchup for assists isn't too bad, but Rudy doesn't get many of those anyway. So he's gone under in 7 out of his last 10 games. Against the Clippers, he's gone under in 4 out of his last 6, but he does get very close to this line. Yeah, they only met a week ago. And a week ago, Rudy had 16 rebounds, but only 12 points. This was a very low-scoring game. If both of these teams score better in this one, shoot a higher percentage, less rebounds are going to be available here for Rudy. So I actually don't mind that one either. I don't like that I'm finding so many unders, though. Rudy Gobert under PRA. And what else do we see? What's pointing out to me? Obviously, Anthony Edwards under in his PRA. Very same hit rate as his points plus assists. So we've just been looking at fading Anthony Edwards on that one. And then PG under rebounds plus assists. I'll see how different that is. 7 out of his last 10. But his matchup for rebounds isn't too bad. So, yeah, it's not too bad. I think I might just stick with looking at his assists. But look, I think that's a really quick way to create a short list on props to go through. Quick. Well, I did it in 30 minutes, right? But in that 30 minutes, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 plays, right? In 30 minutes, I was able to find 18 plays that have hit at a, above 70% hit rate in the last 10. A lot of these players have a good matchup, good form, done it against their opponent in the past. So I managed to get 18 plays onto my short list within 30 minutes. What I'll then do now is using Outlier, using StatsMuse, maybe using Fantasy Basketball to look at defense stats. I would research each play a little bit further, and I'll submit those as my final picks. So I apologize. It is a very slightly different video, but hopefully you've learned something today. I know a lot of you guys have been using the Outlier link that I've been sharing. So the link in description, free 7-day trial to use Outlier. You could do it the same way that I've just done it here. You could do it the way that I do it on my daily videos. Around with it however you like, to be honest. But yeah, 18 plays in 30 minutes. It's quite impressive, to be honest. So I have rushed this. I've got a lot of things to get through tonight. But as of tomorrow, business as usual. So check the pinned comment if you choose to ride with me. I appreciate you for watching, all the support that I've gotten. Let's go.
Sub to the channel cause your boy's getting busy. Coming to your line from the west side of Sydney. We got the free picks and the juice on the daily. It's all free, you don't even have to pay me.